Oh, I guess we had a shot clock violation there. Welcome, Ram fans, to Swollapalooza Thursday. I'm Steve Ivy, host of the show. I'm excited to be here. I have two really, really wonderful guests, and we're going to really delve into, in great detail, the 24-25 Mountain West basketball season. You're going to hear all kinds of great information. I have probably, I think, two of the finest minds when it comes to talking Mountain West Conference hoops. But first, before we do that, I want to take care of some housekeeping things. You know, you've heard me beg to subscribe to the show. Please subscribe to Crackers College Hoops. Be sure to hit the like button. The only reason I beg is because it's important for the algorithms for YouTube. The more likes I get, the more people that subscribe, the more people are likely to find the show. And if they find the show and we start getting more people watching, I get better guests. If I get better guests, more people watch. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So please, by all means, subscribe to the show. Second thing is send your ideas and photos to me. If you watch some of my other live shows, I declared October National Park Month. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I can't stand what goes on in October in terms of television ads on regarding politics and presidential elections. I think the worst of America is those ads. I think the best of America can be found in our national parks and the people that you meet there. So send me pictures. I've actually used one photo of Zion National Park that came from somebody who's somebody who watches, a regular subscriber. The other thing is send your ideas to me. I've gotten a couple of great ideas already from people for shows. And they're really, really cool ideas, and we're going to see if we can get them executed. They're pretty complex, but I think you'll like those the ideas. So please send them to crackerscollegehoops@gmail.com. The other thing is, please be sure we're going to be live here. We are live. Send us your questions in live chat. I've got a great panel that I'm about to bring on. Please send your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live on the show. So with that in mind, before I bring on my guests, I want to mention one other thing. This is my only live show. I will be adding a second live show. It's a lot more fun to do live stuff and do the interaction with the live chat. A week from Monday, my Monday morning cup of coffee will go live, and it is a great concept. It'll be a 30-minute live show, and you're going to really, really like it. It's going to knock your socks off. I think it'll be must-see YouTube, to be honest with you, if you're a Mountain West basketball fan and a Colorado State basketball fan, and even a Northern Colorado sports fan. That's a hint as to what it might involve. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my two guests, and here they are. First, let me introduce Tom Moser. Tom is an amazing mind. 15 years as a high school coach. I'm reading this bio because it's so detailed. Both these guys have bios like you wouldn't believe. 15 years as a high school coach, 3 years as a D3 coach in college, experience in broadcasting games as an analyst, writing articles for the Mountain West Wire. And he currently does what I think is as good a podcast as there is regarding Mountain West Conference basketball. Tremendous detail, tremendous analysis, and I think you're going to learn over the next hour why it's worth subscribing to. The other thing is the other thing with Tom. He won't hold back. He's got some pretty strong opinions, and I encourage you to listen to his podcast last week regarding the Pac-12 thing. And we have two Pac-12 guys on today, but he's got a really, really good opinion, and I don't have to agree with it, but I think it's a very, very solid opinion. My second guest, Tron Johnson. Tron is a native of Southern California, raised in Temecula, currently lives in Montana. Tron, you'll see I'm using a background today that is big sky country. I'm not using a national park, but I am using sunset over Whitefish Lake in Whitefish, which is 40 minutes from Glacier National Park. If anybody's never been to Montana and they want to know why it's called Big Sky Country, that photo is the reason. It's unbelievable. Anyway, Tron created something called Aztec Breakdown. He's a San Diego State guy, but he's looked at in a lot of detail at the Mountain West Conference. And he created something called the Aztec Breakdown in 2017. Does a lot of coverage in terms of film and analytics. He's coached at the middle school and high school level. He's done podcasting. He writes for Mountain West Wire. He writes for East Village Times, and occasionally he writes for himself. And one of the things he's written, just to let you know, he's done a 24-25 Mountain West basketball preview that's available digitally on Etsy and Amazon. So without further ado, let's start chatting, gentlemen. Tom and Tron, how the heck you doing?
Great, Steve. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. Actually, Tron and I got together last night for a little bit on my pod, and as you said, save some of it for tonight, and we certainly did. So I'm excited to talk some Mountain West hoops. We're getting closer by the day, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Tron, how are you, man?
Yeah, same. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking some hoops. Ready for the season to start. Should be a fun one.
Yeah. Hopefully you had great summers. I think we all were kind of emotionally drained after a season last year. And I think we're all ready to get going, but I don't know about you. I needed to get kind of re-energized after getting through March. Let's talk about last season and the highlights of last season. Tom or Tron, feel free to start. Obviously we got 6 bids, but talk about the whole season in general. One of you guys can go. Feel free.
I'll take it. Tron, yeah. Go ahead, Tron.
Okay. Steve, you mentioned the 6 bids, I think is the big talking point. Slightly secondary to that was that teams other than San Diego State won a game in the tournament. So that was cool. Colorado State obviously beat Virginia, and I think casual fans like to make not a big deal out of that because it was a first 4 game, but they still won a game in the tournament. And Utah State beat TCU, I think it was. And so that's cool. Hopefully that's the start of the Mountain West kind of getting that monkey off their back of not performing well in the tournament. Hopefully that leads to more success in the future. And I think just the season as a whole was a lot of fun in the sense of like when you look back at it, right? Obviously, as an Aztec fan, seeing my Aztecs finish in 5th place isn't something I'm super used to. And especially there were like a lot of close games that in the moment you're really upset about, like, man, if 1 or 2 things had gone differently, right? My team could have done more. But also it was still a really fun season despite that. And so hopefully they can, I don't think this season the teams will be quite as good this year, but hopefully they can recreate some of that magic.
Well, we'll talk more about what the teams might look like this year. Tom, how about your thoughts on 23-24?
Yeah, it was really, look, you guys that with your respective schools that you support have been following the conference longer than I have, but really, like, it's kind of indisputable that last year was a year for the ages in the conference. And, obviously we know what's coming up in a few years, but the league could go for 10 or 15 more years. And I don't know if we would be able to replicate what we had last year. And really, any of the top schools had their moment in the sun, right? Like, not every school was able to win a championship. Those were reserved for Utah State in the regular season and New Mexico in the conference tournament. San Diego State makes it a Sweet 16. Nevada had 15-1 start, something like that. Colorado State wins over Creighton, right? And in Colorado in the non-con that had them ranked as high as they've ever been. Boise State had some really good wins. Even UNLV pulled a couple upsets and had some, was playing really well down the stretch. So, every team you could say of the teams that got 6 bids and then UNLV being the 7th, they all had something that they could hang their hat on and had their moment in the sun. So, look, it didn't end superbly for most of the teams, but it doesn't. One of the things really quick is that, with baseball going on right now, the teams that have success in the regular season rarely carry that over to the postseason because it's so difficult. And it shouldn't override everything great that happened during the regular season, and I was disappointed when March hit and our teams kind of lost the way they did. Even though Colorado State won a game, they had a very meek performance then when they flamed out against Texas, right? Nevada blows a 20-point lead in the last 6 minutes in a game they never should lose. Even New Mexico got run out of the gym by Clemson, right? And then at the same time, San Diego State was life and death to beat who did they scrape by in the first round, Tron? I can't even remember anymore.
The Blazers, UAB.
Yeah.
UAB.
Okay. So and it was just such a bad few hours there for the conference. But you know what? The whole season was great. We had so many classic games that people were talking about. The whole country was talking about the Mountain West. So I think we should just enjoy that and not focus so much on how it ended.
The thing that was really fun for me was, we started the season and we all started talking. I think I came on your podcast, Tom, before the season, and we had a bunch of people on, and everybody was talking about what they saw at the conference, and no one saw that number of bids coming. But what was really fun was during the non-conference schedule, watching teams pile up those records. And then we started talking, oh my God, we might have 4 bids. It was like, oh my God, we might have 5 bids, and none of us were talking 6 bids. It was kind of crazy, and it was, and you start looking at what happened to get 6 bids. And a lot of it was driven by the fact it was all the non-conference schedule. Tron, you can probably talk to this really well, how it becomes, analytically and statistically, it becomes kind of a closed system after the non-conference schedule. And all the numbers, are that everything depends on how you play in conference, as long as you don't lose to bad teams. And so what happened was you had all the top teams. No one was losing to the bad teams, to the quad 3, quad 4 games, and the only ones that did were CSU dropped that silly game up in Wyoming. New Mexico dropped the game to Air Force. And then of course UNLV was out of it already. And because of the non-conference schedule, dropping a game to Air Force, but all the other teams took care of business. But none of us, until the very end, when New Mexico won the tournament, went, oh my God, we might win, we might get 6 bids. We were talking 4, I think, most of the time. So that was fun to me. I was having a great time with that. I don't know what you guys thought. So that's 23-24. Let's talk about the next. The start of this coming season, which is coming in a couple of weeks. But before we talk about it, Tron kind of talked about how the teams might not quite be the same this year, and you got a lot of new players. I want to bring on a clip from I went to a practice, CSU practice, and I want to do a clip, and it's a little short clip. I asked a question of Nico Medved, CSU's head basketball coach, and I'd love to hear your reactions to this, because I think it applies really, really well to what we might be talking about in terms of 24-25. Anyway, here's Nico. Medved, Coach, I've noticed that every practice I've come to, you basically are rotating different combinations in green and in white. I assume that's intentional. I just want to know how you use that to help you build the team and get ready for the start of the season.
I mean, I'm getting a much better feel for all these guys and strengths and weaknesses, and them really, even not just for me, but for them trying to play with each other and getting comfortable. And I really like the depth on this team. I think we got a lot of guys who can do a lot of things. But I still feel like we're a ways away from really, really trying to establish roles. And every day we come up in the office and we're talking about, some of the things that maybe we can do really, really well. Like I said, I think maybe we'll play more guys, less minutes. Can we play faster? I don't know, but it's been fun. I really like the group. But I was just mentioning to you, Steve, whatever we decide to do on November 4th on the opener, boy, by the time we get to conference play, it might look completely different. But I'm having fun with it, but it's intentional. Out here in practice, we're throwing different lineups together for us, maybe to look at some different lineups. But honestly, a lot of it's just for those guys to get comfortable playing with each other. Super. Thanks a lot. Absolutely.
Tom, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the new landscape of college hoops has you kind of like this. Like you asked, he's mixing guys in. These guys aren't used to playing together, right? And so you have to test out what group is going to work with each group. So you're not really doing it on the fly. I know you can do it in the non-con games, but you just mentioned a few minutes ago, those are important games for your postseason life. So, you got to test out the Bowen Bourne new point guard coming in. How does he mesh? Well, I mean, he'll play several guard positions for the Rams, but how does he mesh with Bemba inside? How does he work with Clifford getting him the ball? Is he better, or is he gonna need to come off the bench and other guys too? So yeah, I mean, no coaches know right now until you actually see it in these scrimmages, secret scrimmages or exhibitions that you're going to see starting in a couple of weeks here, because the fact is the turnover on rosters, not just in the Mountain West, but throughout the country, it just continues to go up percentage wise as we move on here, year after year in college hoops today.
Hey, Tron, from your point of view, how many teams in 24-25 are structured similarly to the way CSU is, kind of the way that Nico talked about it? How many teams do you think face that same challenge?
I mean, all of them are going to face it. They won't all face it to the same extent, right? I think Nevada's bringing back a lot of pieces. New Mexico's bringing in a lot of new guys, but they're kind of core, their star players are mostly players that are returning. But I mean, every year, coaches will say the same thing, and I do think it's to a greater degree now with all the transfers. But even before the transfer portal, you're still bringing in 3 or 4 freshmen every year, and the guys that you've kept are largely going to be in different roles this year. So to a certain extent, it's the same thing it's always been, but it's to a greater degree now. I think Colorado State is one of the programs that is facing that some of the most. I think San Diego State will be facing quite a bit of that, both once again in terms of not just new guys, but guys being in different roles. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's a new guy who is also in a different role. So everybody is to a certain extent.
So given that, why don't we start going through who you think the top teams are from your perspective, Tron?
Yeah, I think Boise State seems like a pretty clear-cut favorite to me. Tyson Degenhart, for my money, has been a top 5 player ever since his freshman year in the conference. So 3 years running as a top 5 player. Omar Stanley was a great addition to that. So they have a fantastic 1-2 punch there. And the thing they've been missing has been a great point guard, and a true point guard, not just a scoring guard, because I know they had Marcus Shaver not that long ago. But the addition of Alvaro Cardenas, I think will really unlock their offense. Leon Rice has gotten their defense figured out. He's shown that he can do that at an elite level year after year. And Cardenas, I think, will really help guys like Degenhart, guys like Stanley be just even more efficient offensively. After that, I have Nevada. They bring back, like I said, they have a lot of continuity and they have a lot of experience. And I think those two things will help them. They just kind of barely nudge out probably New Mexico is who I have third. So those would be my top 3 right now.
Tom, how about you?
Yeah, Tron and I had this conversation last night, and we're in lockstep on Boise State and the reasons for it. So I listed on my initial pod 2 weeks ago, I tabbed Boise to win the regular season championship. Again, I did last year. They came up just a little bit short. But if you followed the Broncos last year, their one weakness was their point guard play. They brought Roddy Anderson in. He didn't live up to the billing, and Whiting is a serviceable backup, but he wasn't able to step in and take over the lion's share of the minutes and be productive. And Anderson, he was just too much style and not enough substance. Cardenas, he might not be your 5-star recruit that's going to jump off the page athletically, but he's the definition of a point guard, the way a throwback point guard. He was the starting point guard 2 years ago when San Jose State had the best season probably they've ever had. He was a big reason why Omari Moore was the player of the year in the conference 2 years ago for San Jose State. And as Tron said, he's what they've been missing. And to me, they're the only team in the league that has 3. I mean, you can, it's obviously subjective, or, objective, depending on who you deem a dog, but that brings back 3 dogs, right? They bring back Degenhart and Stanley as as Tron mentioned, and I'm going to count Cardenas because he's a Mountain West player. A lot of these other teams, as we're going to discuss, they're bringing some transfers in, but we don't know if they're going to be able to play in the conference. Okay, and that some will and some won't. And other teams have 2 good players returning, but I don't think anybody has 3 known quantities returning, and so that gives Boise a leg up for me. And then really quick, I do have New Mexico and Nevada 2-3. They're really close. I think I had New Mexico second. I might be leaning towards flipping them, but it's neck and neck with those 2 right now for second and third.
I'm just I'm with both of you guys on Boise State, and I think it's for the reasons, to me, Degenhardt's he's one of the best players we've seen in this conference. The consistency, the toughness, just the all-around skill. As a leader, Stanley proved he's a good player, all conference level. And Tom, you and I had tons of discussions about the point guard issues last year. And, I heard some things from opposing coaches during the non-conference that were very questioning of what Boise had in the backcourt last year. And there's no doubt that Cardenas adds quite a bit. Obviously, they do have some things they've got to solve with some of the younger players. I think you've got Lockett, Meadow, and Keene, and I think 2 of those 3 guys have to hit. None of them have really shown that they're capable of hitting yet. But I think they've got to become players, and I think they're capable of it. So I do have Boise State as my leading contender. I lean toward New Mexico over Nevada. I'll tell you why in a second. I like New Mexico's. I think they're a very physical, very different team this year, and they're going to be very physical and look more like a Big Ten team this year. They added guys like C.J. Noland in the backcourt, who's a 6'3", 220-pound. He's a power guard. Donovan Dent will be the smallest guy in that team, and he's built pretty well. Last year they were, quick. House and Mashburn, quick, but definitely not physical. I think this year they've added some physicality, and I think they're going to be pretty darn good with the newcomers. Nevada, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to replace the scoring as easily as we think with Blackshear and Lucas. We know about Dussel being a great 3-point shooter, but I don't think he has quite the scoring ability that Lucas had in terms of getting the free throw line and shooting in the mid range as well. I see Dussel's more of a catch and shoot 3-point guy, not necessarily a Lucas replacement. And then the guard they brought in, I forget his last name, Kobe something. I don't see him as being replacing Blackshear quite one for one. So I don't think they're going to be quite as good as they were last year, and I don't think they're going to be at the level of New Mexico and Boise State. So that's but I think I can see other teams squeezing into that 3rd spot ahead of Nevada, but I like your top 2. What do you think about the next tier, the next group? You've got the San Diego States, you've got the UNLVs, you've got the CSUs, and then like I said, so that's several of them. What do you think of the next group?
I'll start with this one. So I think you have to give Dutcher and San Diego State the benefit of the doubt. They have a lot of question marks because if you look at their roster, Reese Waters, Miles Bird are their 2 returning go-to guys. Bird has not really put it together for consistent minutes. They're expecting big things out of the redshirt freshman Magoon Gwath, and he does seem like somebody who will step in and have a big leap this year. Tron can obviously talk more about the Aztecs better than I can, so I'll kind of move on. But I do have them 4th, but I think they're really tight with Utah State. I think Calhoun has proven that he can turn a bad program in Youngstown State into a winner. Utah State is far from a bad program, and they also are as close as anybody to Boise as far as bringing back 3 horses, because they bring back Ian Martinez, who will be up there for Player of the Year in the conference, and Falslev, who's a very good player. He just was like the 4th or 5th option last year. And then they bring back the 7-footer to Big Fish, Isaac Johnson. He had some pretty good games. And Calhoun brought in like 4 or 5 like interesting transfers. Now, they're, as you said, Steve, they're not all going to hit, but it's certainly possible that 1 or 2 or 3 of them hit. And I think there's some upside with that team there. So I'm not predicting the exact same thing that happened last year, where they caught lightning in a bottle with sprinkle. But I do think there's some upside there. And then I think CSU, I have 6. and UNLV I have 7, and we can talk about those guys a little bit more later. So I'll
we don't need to spend too much time on it. I'm very familiar with what's going on at CSU, and it's similar to last year. They brought in players last year, and Clifford and Scott hit right away, and that's why they were so good right out of the chute. Injuries kind of dragged them down, and then they lost a lot of momentum. But they need the transfers to hit this year, and the one that's the most curious to me is Ethan Morton, who came from Purdue, not known as a great scorer, but he was a high-ranked high school prep player. He was Pennsylvania Player of the Year back in 2020. And the one thing that's really interesting, this conference has done really well with top 100 players out of that 2020 class. San Diego State has Reese Waters. CSU has Nick Clifford. Martinez was class of 2020. He was Cottrell from UNLV. There's all kinds of good players. Well, Morton's in that same realm, and there's questions. Is he going to hit, or is he not going to hit? Is he going to be a Nick Clifford, or is he going to be a Javonte Johnson? And I think people lean toward he will make a significant impact. But I think you're right, and I think it's fair to have him. I think there's going to be so close in this conference this year, and I think CSU will compete. It's okay to put them 6th, UNLV 7th, but I can see, again, just like last year, any one of those teams could slide into the 3, 4, 5 slot. So anyway, and then I'm not going to any interest. Is there anything interesting going on in teams 8 through 11? Tom, go ahead.
I will quickly say that I do think that Tim Miles will have a much more competitive team this year than he did last year, provided they can stay healthy. Like last year was just a train wreck. I remember by the end of the season, the second half of the conference play, I don't even think they had 6 scholarship guys available. He's got Viola back this year, who was really good 2 years ago. Uduje comes over from Utah State, probably wanted a bigger role for his last year and wasn't going to get it at Utah State. He'll be a very good player for San Jose State. I looked at their roster. There's some transfers who have some ability there. And I think that I'm not saying that they're going to be where they were 2 years ago, but I think they're going to pull a couple upsets. And I think they're comfortably above the 3 below them. I think this is like year 0. You hear that term a lot in college football now when a coach takes over a program. I think it's year 0 for Sundance at Wyoming, like with him getting a job late and bringing in guys. I think he'll get it going, but not this year. And I think Fresno and Air Force are just too far below. So I think my prediction is San Jose State's clear of those bottom 3, and they'll actually be closer to like 6 and 7 than they are 9, 10, 11.
Tron, your thoughts?
I think there's a ton of interesting stuff down in the bottom teams. I don't know how many wins it'll lead to, but that doesn't make it not interesting to me. Tom mentioned Wyoming. I don't remember the player's name, but I think Wyoming might have one of the best shooters in the conference. Fresno State and their coach, who's credited with creating the dribble drive offense, could do some fun things. I think he brought in a lot of players that have some pretty clear weaknesses, but also their strengths might fit his system relatively well. Everybody on Air Force can shoot the ball. Like every single player has a shooting percentage. It's like 37 or better, something ridiculous like that. And then Tim Miles, you can never truly count out, right? How much support he gets at San Jose State and the types of players he's able to bring in, you can vary, but he's a proven head coach. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening at the bottom, but are like talent wise, just the deficiency is too great to make up for too much of it.
Yeah, Tom, I'm with you on San Jose State, kind of figuring out a way to get their nose in front of the other ones. I like what they did in the backcourt. They lost Cardenas and Amy Jr., but they brought in Donovan Yap, who's I think a good player. He didn't thrive so much at Fresno. Started his career at UNLV, transferred to Fresno, and he had some good games. Inconsistent, just like everything that happened at Fresno under Justin Hudson. But the other guy they brought in, his name escapes me, but a transfer from UCLA, and he's a 4-star player. He's a good player.
McClendon.
And they've got a good backcourt. And, good backcourts go a long way. And like you said, with Viola, and he's got a couple of of tall, skinny, big guys that can block shots, and he likes having guys around the rim that can just block shots. So they pressure the ball on the perimeter, decent guards on the perimeter, and then just guys that stand around the rim and either foul you or block shots. But I think they're gonna be dangerous. I don't think they're gonna be great, but I think like you said, they might spring an upset here, an upset there, and separate themselves from the other three. So okay, let's talk about top players. Tron, you've done a lot of writing on kind of the top passers, top rebounders, top shooters for MWC Wire. Why don't you start off talking through some of those players that you've seen that you think will emerge this year?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk top players, it has to start with Tyson Degenhardt, right? And you mentioned him earlier. I think we all mentioned him earlier, so we don't need to belabor that too much. But you have to start with him. Some players I think we haven't mentioned yet. I really love Drake Allen, and I'm probably saying this name wrong, Aubin Godoretsi, the Utah State transfers. Really like them. Colorado State has brought in some interesting guys that seemed like there's 2 or 3 of them that were playing hurt last year, and still managed to put up pretty decent numbers. So it'll be real fun to see what they can do if they're healthy and in Nico Medved's system. Reese Waters, I think will be up there. He was on fire to start last season for the first 13 games, and then he got hurt in the first game of conference season. I don't expect he will be at that 13 game level, but if he can get 85 or 90% of it over the course of the whole season, that's first team all conference potential right there.
We just interrupted. We saw the best of Reese Waters at CSU in Fort Collins. He torched us last year.
He had a couple good games after he got hurt, but it was never consistent. I think Miles Bird will take a major step up. I'm trying to think of anybody else because there's a lot of incoming talent. Nick Davidson at Nevada was playing with a broken collarbone for I don't even know how long of last season. And was still putting up 12 points and 8 rebounds or whatever it was. So like, I'm expecting him to be a monster down low. So many good players. When I was coming up with like a preseason first team all conference, it was very, very tough to do. I didn't even mention Nate Clifford, obviously. I'm just going to stop now because I'm just going to keep on thinking of names and I want to give Tom a chance to answer.
Yeah, we could go on forever. Tom, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, it's top heavy with some real studs that came back in the league. So a couple guys that Tron did not mention. I don't think we mentioned Donovan Dent yet, and we certainly haven't mentioned DJ Thomas yet. So, I mean, those are 2 of the – well, we did talk about them for a second, but DJ Thomas probably one of the – I don't know the rest of the country as well, but certainly probably one of the top 10 point guards in the country, right? And we haven't even mentioned those 2 guys yet. So we all know who the hammers are, right? I want to spend a second here and just kind of list one guy for each of these top 6 teams, maybe 2 guys, but one guy that I think they can bust out. And if they do, that's going to raise the ceiling of that team. So with Boise State, you mentioned a few of the guys, Steve, earlier. You didn't mention the Anderson dude from Arizona, 7-footer, Dylan Anderson. He's a recruit. Good high recruit for Arizona. Didn't get any run there, but as a 7-footer in this conference, to pair him up inside with Omar Stanley, if he hits, that raises the ceiling of the Broncos. For New Mexico, I'm pretty good with names, but I'm going to pass on pronouncing his last name. But the Serbian Philip B, the long last name, 6'9", skilled. He's a guy that he's probably maybe a better version of Amzil, what the Lobos have. So he's a guy to watch out for. For Nevada, I think we've talked about a couple of transfers like Sanders and Dussel, and we know about Davidson, and you have the role players like Foster and Himes and what they're going to provide, and Trey Coleman too. But the guy who may take a step up there is Rollison, the guard, who got some minutes and showed some flashes last year, Tyler Rollison. So if he can do that, that's going to be big for the Wolfpack. We already talked about Magoon Gwath for the Aztecs. And then Crocker Johnson with your Rams, Steve. I think Crocker Johnson inside to complement Bemba. He's a guy is like, well, I think he was the OVC freshman of the year last year, or certainly right. And then with Tron mentioned some of the Utah State guys. The other one that I want to mention, they have two options. Isaac Davis was a very, very high recruit for the Aggies, one of the top recruits they've ever brought in. And one of their other transfers, Tucker Anderson at 6'9", was also a freshman of the year in his conference. So those are just some guys to look out for. And if they emerge, and I said it a minute ago, not every guy that transfers in is going to hit, right? They're just not. Some you're going to do well. Some guys can't live up to the physicality or the coaching or the scouting that you get in this league because we're so well coached. If you can live up to it, those guys are going to immediately improve the stock of their teams.
So, hey, we got a question that came in, Tron. You should be able to see it. Do you think it's more likely San Diego State ends the season at their current preseason ranking or the 20 range they finished last season?
I haven't seen too many preseason rankings. I just pulled up Bart Torvik when I saw that question come through. They're currently ranked 77th nationally in Torvik. Any given year, the safe bet is that they're going to finish higher than whatever their preseason ranking is. If they're ranked 20, they'll probably be finish higher than that in all reality, as hard as that is to do. I would very strongly bet that like it'll be closer to 20 than it is to 77. I don't know what the math is hard. I don't know what the break even point on that is, somewhere around like 45 or something, but they will finish closer to 20th than they do to 77th.
Very good. Thanks. Getting back to the players, before we talk about our all Mountain West Conference teams, who do you think who would you choose as the one or two top newcomers? Tom?
I'm going to go right. I mentioned him a minute ago. I'm going to go to Tron's neck of the woods, and I'm going to say Gwath. I've seen some clips. And that's saying something for me because I'm a guy who likes to see it before I give you the benefit of the doubt, and I haven't seen it yet from him. But he's a redshirt player, so he practiced last year against Jaden Ledee every day. Okay, so you can't tell me that he didn't learn a lot from Ledee. He's being coached by one of the best staffs, certainly in the league, if not on the West Coast and in the country. So I trust what the staff is doing there. I've seen and heard enough and read enough, and I think he's poised for a breakout year. And I'm going to go with the big guy for the Aztecs.
Tron, you're newcomer.
Sheesh, man. There's too many to choose from. I mean, Magoon Gwath is a fantastic choice. Props to Tom for that one.
I stole your thunder, Tron. I'm sorry.
And that's okay. I was thinking more like transfers anyways. I didn't naturally think of like a redshirt freshman as a newcomer. I'm gonna go with Kobe Sanders. I don't know that he will be like the best at the end of the day necessarily, like the person you would choose first in a draft type format, but I think he's gonna make a lot of headlines as a 6'8", 6'9" point guard for Nevada there. He's gonna have a number of big games and have people talking about them.
Next, let's just talk two guys that maybe are coming back, a few guys that are coming back. I want to mention two guys that I think are going to break out this year, that we saw play last year and we saw flashes. You already referred to one, Tron. I think you talked about Miles Bird. I think we're going to see him break out, and I think we're going to see him elevate his game. I think the kid's a great player. I think physically he needs to develop. Emotionally, he just needs to mature. And I think we're going to see a more mature Miles Bird this year. He can do a lot of things. Defensively, he's good. I think as long as he figures out a way to become more consistent, I think we'll start seeing that out of him. My other one that I really, really like is True Washington at New Mexico. I think he's going to add another level. Like I said, I talked about New Mexico being a more physical team, adding guys like C.J. Noland. I can see a backcourt with Dent, Noland, and Washington. And I think that those three guys playing together would be a lot different than when you had Dent, House, and Mashburn playing together. I think you're going to see a more physical, very rugged defensive team with those three guys in there, plus Dent's ball handling ability. You guys, any thoughts on other breakout players?
Well, it's funny, as after Tron went and you were talking and you mentioned your first player, I was looking down my list and I pointed to True Washington. So that's why I nodded my head when you said True, because he's somebody we haven't talked about yet. But he, as a returner, he got a lot of experience last year. Now, there were too many guys in the backcourt, so he didn't get, kind of like Miles Bird situation. He didn't get 20 minutes a game, but he played every game. He had some very good games. He had some games where, he didn't contribute as much. But with Donovan Dent handling the ball, running the show, and guys like Amzil to stretch the floor and other options, New Mexico is going to play fast. They always do. There's going to be more possessions. He's super athletic. I think it's going to be an opportunity for him to shine here, with Dent kind of facilitating for him and drawing the attention of opposing defenses.
Tron, any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you guys both took the two I would have gone with. So let's just throw in a couple more names just for the fun of it. UNLV with DJ Thomas is going to be playing very fast, and I would not be terribly surprised if Robert Whaley ends up starting at center for them. I don't know if I'd expect it, but I wouldn't be surprised about it. And I think he can do some fun stuff. So that's a name to keep an eye on. And then you mentioned San Jose State and how Tim Miles likes his bigs, and they have a Drame Gionge. I'm probably saying that wrong. True 7-foot big man, skinny kid, but very good defensive instincts, great rim protector. Didn't get a whole lot of minutes last year, but I think we'll get a lot more this year, and will help anchor that defense and make some fun highlight plays.
Yeah, next time I talk to Miles, I'll have to ask him what he calls him, because I guarantee he doesn't. I guarantee he butchers the name.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was DeYoung, because almost Tron mentioned his lack of playing time. That's because virtually every time the game started, he picked up 2 fouls before the under 16 timeout. He was on the bench, so I heard his name called every time there was a whistle blown, and he picked up a foul. So let's see if he's learned how to play without fouling out there.
Okay, all conference teams. Tron, first team. We just going with the first team.
Sheesh. Off the top of my head, I'm gonna go Donovan Dent, Reese Waters, Neat Clifford, Tyson Degenhart, Nick Davidson.
Okay, Tom.
So I have 6 guys circled, so I can only pick 5. I'm going to go with Degenhart, Dent, Davidson, Martinez, and DJ Thomas. So I'm leaving off Clifford, and I'm leaving off Waters, and those are 2 toughies for me. I think the loss of Isaiah Stevens is gonna hamper Clifford a little bit. Obviously, he's as good an athlete as there is in the conference. I just think it'll be an adjustment for him to play without Isaiah Stevens. And Waters, let's see if he can bounce back, as Tron mentioned, and play at 100%. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if either of those 2 are on your first team at the end of the season.
So Tron had Donovan Dent and not DJ Thomas. You had both, Tom. I'm going to put you on the spot. You only get to choose 1 point guard on the floor, not 2. Who you taking?
As a coach, I'm probably going to take Donovan Dent. I'm going to take Dent. I love DJ Thomas. And if Donovan Dent, and I said the same thing 12 months ago, if Donovan Dent has improved his jump shooting, he would be unguardable. And he's looking at a Jaden Ledee type of jump where he's an All-American nationwide. Now, I don't know if that's possible for him to do that and improve his jump shot enough, but he's virtually unguardable in the open floor. And that's why Patino lets those guys run so much, because he's just all over the place. So it's fun watching him play. It's hard to take anybody over DJT, but I'll take Dent.
By the way, I would take Dent as well. I'd go on record as saying that. I think, of all the guys I saw last year, so I get to watch Isaiah Stevens for 5 years, and you know what I think of him. Mm-hmm. But I don't think anybody runs the high screen pick and roll better than Donovan Dent does. He's a magician with slipping passes to guys through small windows and setting up guys for dunks. And I think he's superior to DJ Thomas in terms of being a playmaker like that. And that's not to say that DJ Thomas isn't a heck of a player. So I think both you guys, Degenhart to me is a no-brainer. Dent to me is a no-brainer. I like Davidson. I do like Clifford. And who's my last player? I don't know. I'm just going to go with those 4, and we'll let the 5th one find his way to the team. So anyway, that's the all conference. Let's go back to kind of the wrap up of the number of how many bids do you think this conference is headed toward? And I want you to put it in a perspective of what kind of non-conference schedule do you think we're going to see? Is there any teams and any schedules that you've seen where you think teams can run the table or come close to running the table in the non-conference like they did last year? And what's that going to mean? And how many bids do you think we'll end up with? Go ahead,
You want to start with this one?
Tom, go ahead.
Okay. So I've settled on 3. I think it's funny. You said it at the top, like last year at this point, we're like, well, let's just hope for 4 again, right? Because it had been 2 years straight of 4 bids. Now that 4th bid, each of the prior 2 years was a play-in bid, okay? But it was still 4 bids for 2 straight years. So we would have hoped for 4 at this point last year. Now, what got us to 6 was everybody, with the exception of Boise State, everybody producing really well in the non-con. And not only did all of our teams produce in the non-con, but the A10 and the Missouri Valley and any of the other fringe, like mid-major or high major leagues, they didn't get the job done. And so there was really no competition. And then the ACC teams started to beat each other, and there were a couple stolen bids, but not a ton. And so we all know how our seeds worked out. Not very good, but we did get 6 teams in. I don't think we'll get that perfect storm this year. And I think let's hope for 4, but I would take 3. As far as the schedules go, New Mexico has really beefed up their non-conference schedule. They really have. San Diego State is always playing a very good non-conference schedule. So is Boise State. Nevada's is kind of similar to last year's, maybe a little bit tougher. So I think we're going to struggle to have like the 5 teams that we had last year, where they only had like 6 losses heading into conference play. And that's what positioned us so well. It's just going to be so difficult to do.
Hey, before Tron, before you talk about the number of bids, Tom, I want you to take this question because you were an expert on the House Mashburn dynamics with Dent. Do you think UNM gets some addition from subtraction and has a more balanced team?
Well, it's funny. Like, I took some heat from a lot of New Mexico followers last December because I started to like point out, and I don't want to pat myself on the back, but when those guys were missing games, and I said, like, look, they are better without Jamal Mashburn Jr. on the floor. Now, no offense to Jamal Mashburn Jr. and Temple, because I rooted, being a Pennsylvania kid, I rooted for Temple in the 80s and 90s with John Chaney. But Jamal Mashburn Jr., he chose to play his final year at Temple. He didn't go to a Power 4 team, okay? He's a good player. He wasn't an all-conference first-teamer, and the Lobos were better without him last year. So, addition by subtraction for Mash, yes. He was too much worried about hunting his own shot and not playing as much defense. Now, House, you take the good with the bad with House, right? Like, he's maddening from a coach's perspective. Like, he would have given me grays because he takes some really bad shots and he makes some bad decisions out there. But he does give you the energy, and that's something that the Lobos are going to have to replace. So, yes, on the Mash, I know I'm being hard on him. Maybe a little bit to be determined on the House.
Super. So, Tron, number of bids.
I also have it at 3. Yeah, I have it at 3 bids. I think, despite having San Diego State a little bit lower in the standings, I think they're going to get in when it's all said and done. Coach Dutcher has shown basically no reasons to believe that he won't be able to get this team into the tournament. I think Boise State makes it. Obviously, I think this is also going to be the year where they win a game for the first time in their history, I'm pretty sure. So that'll be fun. And then one of Nevada or New Mexico will make it. I would choose Nevada right now. I think, kind of along the lines of that last question, I think House was the lifeblood of that team. And just the team went as he went. When he was hot, they were hot. When he was cold, they did not play well. And without him, it's just such a big identity shift. And so I I have concerns about whether they'll be able to reach the same ceilings that they reached last season, and so that's why I would leave them out at this point.
I'll tell you I'm with you guys at 3 bids. Boy, I would love to see 4, but I'm with you at 3. And I think the first 2 will go to Boise State and New Mexico. And Tron, I'm with you on the 3rd bid. I'm with San Diego State, and there's a reason. And it's just a kind of something Nico Medved taught me about 4 or 5 years ago. He said, don't ever count out San Diego State. You're crazy if you do. It's just the nature of the beast. They are the flagship program in the Mountain West, and I cannot see us getting 3 bids in San Diego State not being one of them. That's just the way I see it. So I have Boise, New Mexico, and San Diego State. So cool. 3 bids. It would be amazing if we got 4 or 5 again, but I just don't see that in the cards. So any other thoughts on teams and players before we move on to the final topic, which is a fun one?
No,
We didn't see 4 or 5 teams. Yeah, we didn't see 4 or 5 teams in the cards last year either, and then we got 6. So
yeah,
true.
Optimism abound.
So we'll have to get back together after the non-con, and we'll see what the closed system reveals into the number of bids. So anyway, last topic, and this should be fun. You know, we're not going to have, it's hard to do a Mountain West YouTube stream without having a long, heated discussion about the Pac-12 and the split and who this and who's that. I'm more interested in where Tom's going. Tron, I know you're going to the Pac-12 in 2 years. I know you're excited about having Gonzaga. I know you're excited about the possibility of teams like Memphis. Who knows who else is coming? And of course, with CSU, I'm really excited about the Pac-12. I go back a ways with the Pacific Conference, the Pac-10. I was in graduate school at the University of Arizona in 1978 and 79. I caught them in their last year in the WAC, my first exposure to teams like BYU and Utah and CSU and Wyoming and UTEP and New Mexico. And then the next year, Arizona was in the Pac-10. It was before you got Colorado and Utah. And so I got to see, the UCLAs of the world and a lot of good teams in Pac-10 basketball. So I'm excited about, even though it's only Oregon State, I got to see Oregon State with Ralph Miller back in the 70s and 80s. That was exciting. So I'm definitely going to the Pac-12. Tom, the question for you, are you going to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Mountain West and stick with them? Or are you going to try and buy a bid into the Pac-12? Or are you going to do both?
Yeah, well, so I've had plenty of people ask me that question over the last few weeks, and my half kidding answer is, I'll go to the highest bidder, right? Like, at some point now, I have to learn. I'm too slow to figure this out, but I have to learn to monetize my skills, I guess, if you will, right? Like, I need to figure out some way to make that work. But in all seriousness, like, look, I became a fan of the Mountain West because of the product that it was. Like, I didn't choose to follow the WAC, or no offense to the WAC, or no offense to the Conference USA or whatever. I chose to follow the Mountain West because of how good the conference was. I loved the coaches and the venues and the teams and the success of it. So, I'm not going to say that I have to wait and see who's in what leagues, because, this isn't going to happen. But let's just say Dutcher retires. They win a national championship this year, and Dutcher retires. And Mark Few and Gonzaga win a national championship, and Tron there, you take that, right? And then Gonzaga wins it in 2 years, and Mark Few retires, and Gonzaga and San Diego State fall off a cliff. We know this isn't going to happen, but let's see where the programs are. Like, who knows? I'd be fortunate. Let's just hope that I'm still willing and able to continue doing this in 2 years. I'd be happy to have both sets of fans and teams like wanting me to follow and all that stuff. So I don't want to commit to anything right now. I don't want to ice anybody out. It's possible where I just lump everybody together, much to the chagrin of the fans of the teams, and just kind of make it a West Coast thing. So I guess I have a year plus to figure that out. So I don't know what else to say.
You're a free agent for now.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, unrestricted.
There you go. Well, I think it's great. We can wrap up now. Thank you so much. I think folks really get a great exposure to the two great minds here. These are two of the smartest people when it comes to Mountain West Conference basketball. Tom with a tremendous coaching background. Tron with unbelievable, not just coaching, but unbelievable depth and understanding of analytics. And I would encourage you to follow these guys as much as possible on X. Find them on Spotify or Apple podcasts and Mountain West Wire, Mountain West MWC Wire. Do all the things you can to follow them, because I got to tell you, they're really, really good. I'm looking forward to following both you guys. I'm having fun with this channel, but more importantly, I'm really looking forward to this season and seeing the new teams and watching them develop, especially at the top, because I think it's going to be such a battle at the top. Last thoughts, Tron?
I don't think I have much. Thanks for having me. I think this was a great show. We'll have to do it again after the season starts, I think.
Tom, last thoughts?
Yeah, this was a blast. I think your last point kind of summed it up. I think it's going to be a really exciting. November 4th can't get here soon enough. So thanks for having me, Tron. Good to hang out with you again, and let's do this after the non-con.
You bet. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tron. We'll see you guys.
All right, Steve.